get us started. So yes, welcome Bethany. And I, of course, know you, but a lot of people watching this may not. So I think it's always helpful to start with introducing yourself, tell us who you are, what you do on campus, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. I'm Bethany Bibb. I'm the Assistant Director of the SU Writing Center, which includes the Undergraduate Writing Center, the Writing Fellows Program, and the Graduate Writing Center, which I am basically the director in all but name for the Graduate Writing Center. I came to SUU almost 2 years ago now, began working here in October 2018. And I will commemorate my 14th year of my Writing Center career this August.
Awesome, fantastic. So could you kind of walk us through, like for those who haven't ever gone to a writing center or haven't ever had that experience, like what exactly is it that the writing center does?
Sure. So if you don't mind, I'll just focus on the Graduate Writing Center since that's what I'm directly coordinating. So with the Graduate Writing Center, we offer students an opportunity to meet with a consultant one-on-one or in small groups to talk about their writing, to share their projects, have a discussion with us as readers. So it's an opportunity for a writer to discuss their work with a reader and to get feedback about what they're doing well, get some tips and some suggestions for how to take it to the next level, answer questions that the writer might have, address any concerns that the writer might have, whether that might be about the assignment itself or just about writing in general. And so during that time, we usually will ask the writer to talk about their project a little bit more, kind of tell us what they're working on, maybe what got them interested in that project to begin with. So it's a way of, for our part, it gives us a little context, but it also gives us an opportunity to build rapport with the writer and for them to talk about their work in a way that maybe isn't necessarily mediated by the assignment sheet or something. They can tell us what it is that they're working on in their own words, describe their project in their own way. Our sessions last for 50 minutes. They probably would need to be quite a bit longer, but that's the best we can do as far as the time slot. So we offer 50 minutes. We offer sessions in currently only online formats. Before the advent of COVID-19, we had both in-person and online sessions, but since the middle of March, we've been doing online only. And since the majority of graduate students here at SCU that we work with are in online programs, it was just a natural transition to move into an online platform. We offer synchronous online sessions via Zoom, like we're doing now. For students that aren't able to meet with us live, we also offer feedback via email for their convenience. So they can send us a paper, book an appointment slot for that time, and then send their paper. We will respond with feedback and suggestions and comments within 24 hours. Sometimes a little bit longer if our internet connection goes down.
Sure. Well, I think that just comes down to like what most of us tell our students, right? Don't wait till the last minute. If you do, we'll break down. You'll get sick. The ebook you needed will no longer be available. So that will, yeah, add
Right.
that to the list of it, like internet connectivity issues for the Writing Center. So I
Yes.
did want to ask because from what I understand, the graduate student is working directly with a writing fellow, right? And like how are they assigned to the student? Like, is it kind of randomly generated or?
So that would be the Writing Fellow program, which is with undergraduate tutors. So in the Writing Fellow program, and Dr. Julia Combs oversees that specifically, I am involved in kind of more of a supporting role administratively. But the way that works is a writing fellow will, or a student will apply for a writing fellow position. Sometimes that student has been recommended to us by the faculty because the student has taken their class already. They're familiar with the assignments, they're familiar with the kinds of work that students in that class will be doing. And so they go through application process, interview process. After being hired, they go through a training process that Julia Combs and a writing fellow student director go through with them. I train them also on how to use our booking system and handle the logistical parts of that side. And they work one-on-one with students in the class that they are assigned to. So they're working with one specific group of students, generally one specific class. Occasionally, we might have a fellow fellowing for a couple of different classes, but usually it's just one. So for the Graduate Writing Center, I currently have 2 graduate writing consultants, and we are basically a appointment-based system. So any student in any program, graduate program at SUU, can book an appointment with us. And we are happy to work with them on any kind of writing that they're working on. So it doesn't even have to be specifically for a class. If they would like feedback on their CV, a resume, maybe a personal project that they're working on, maybe it was a research paper for a class, but now they've taken a personal interest in it and they want to do more with it. And we can work with them on that as well. So on the Graduate Writing Center side of things, there's also a hiring process, application interviews. I also have the consultants do a mock session with me with a sample paper and act as the student. So we do a bit of role play because I want to get a sense of how they interact with people, interpersonal communication, and so forth. And then once hired, they go through extensive training with me. This past year, it was interesting because we barely got the approval for funding in time for me to hire the consultants right before they needed to start. So I told them, okay, we already have students wanting to meet with us, but I'm just going to carve out a week and kind of put you through an intensive writing center training boot camp just to get you ready and off the ground. And but I made sure that they were ready for all of the basics. And then every month, and sometimes even multiple times a month, I'll check in with them, we'll do observations, we'll have ongoing training and support for them throughout. So this helps because I get to share new information and new methods and so forth with them. So it keeps our practices fresh, and it also, gradually as I'm introducing them to more and more writing center theory, composition theory, pedagogy, and so forth, it just helps to broaden their knowledge and experience and expand on the tools that they have that they can use, and strategies that they can use in sessions.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that you can help graduates like with their CVs and things like that, because my own experience with my graduate students in online classes I teach is that, especially for those who are coming to grad school after a long time away from their undergrad, there's like some anxiety related to writing, right? And whether that's
Yes.
you like aren't as familiar with citation as they used to be, down to um, uh, like I just haven't written a formal like research paper or whatever in such a long time. So how do you and your consultants kind of approach that anxiety that is part of the process? Like is that usually the most difficult part, or the least difficult?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. It was something that I definitely wanted to talk about in our interview today. Writing anxiety is real. The level of demands put on graduate students and the expectations on them coming into a program, whether they're just coming into that program from an undergraduate program having completed their bachelor, or whether they're coming in after, a few years absence, as or a gap in between non-traditional students coming for their first graduate degree, or maybe even a second graduate degree after a few years. That that feeling of being overwhelmed is common, but many graduate students think that they're the only ones who feel that way. And so one of the things that I'm always conscious of when I'm meeting with students is I part of asking about their project and building that rapport is I also want to know how they're doing. What is their sense of this project? What do they feel that they're doing well with? What do they feel that they would like additional help with or have some concerns? And I often take a few minutes to just listen and let the student talk about their experience and talk about some of the questions or concerns and occasionally frustration that they might have. And sometimes they'll say things like, please be patient with me, please don't judge me. I'm really good in my field, I swear. I've just never written a paper like this before, and I don't really know how to do this. And so I find myself telling the majority of graduate students I work with that what you're experiencing is normal. And I also feel kind of sad that I have to say that, because it shouldn't be normal. It shouldn't be a normal experience, but sadly it is. And but I at least want students to know that you're not the only one who feels this way. It is overwhelming, and learning to write for a graduate level project in a graduate level program is like learning a new language, because even if you were writing A papers as an undergrad, there's this unspoken assumption that once you get into grad school, you're operating on a much, much higher level now, that somehow you will have magically achieved just in whatever time you went through between an undergraduate and graduate. And a lot of it is simply that for students coming into their programs after a number of years in their own fields, they're coming into a different type of discourse with different expectations. They might be great writers in the kind of writing that they do every day in their fields, um, but now they're faced with this new set of requirements and expectations, and it is like navigating a new world, experiencing a new culture, learning a new language. And so I do my best to set writers at ease that this is part of the process, and it's okay. You are doing the work, you are putting the time and effort into it, and look at how you're coming along. And I like to be able to address those anxieties, because a lot of times it's not the majority of graduate students that we've worked with who think that they're bad writers, they're not. They're good writers. It's partly the additional set of expectations that they place on themselves. And and some of it is just just making like a little tweak in the paper, a little tweak to enhance the flow between sections or between paragraphs, to sort of bridge and thread those thoughts through from one to the next and so forth, makes a world of difference. And sometimes it's just small little thing that makes a big difference and really boosts their confidence. That's a big part of what I feel that we do in the Graduate Writing Center, is boosting confidence and you know explaining things and showing examples and so forth, but also pointing out in the papers, look, you did this. This is really great. This is a great way to describe this. Your formatting looks really good. Here. So we want them to come away with a sense of accomplishment. Look at what you are doing. Here's just a few little areas that could be even better. It's just going to make your project stronger, and it's okay. We can do this. Your project might seem really big right now, but let's break it down, and let me share some resources that might be helpful to you. You know, we're offering we are often pointing students to library resources, and here's a great module on how to use library databases to find scholarly sources, and here's a great module on going over the differences between a scholarly source or a popular source and when to use which and so forth. And sometimes I think that, you know, beyond the feedback that we're giving on the writing, that graduate students, many of them most appreciate the opportunity to be heard and to feel like they matter. Their experience matters. Um, they matter as a person, and that they're not alone. And in fact, one of my consultants had an experience last semester with a student who had almost complete. I think she was just a few credits shy of completing her graduate program, but she was feeling so overwhelmed with the workload and the degree of requirements for the projects and so forth, that she was on the brink of dropping out of her program, you know, just credits shy of completing it. And she found the Graduate Writing Center, met with one of the consultants, shared her experience, and, you know, he let her know, like, it's okay. You can meet with us regularly if you want, you know, on various parts of your project as you have questions. You know, we're here to help and support you in your success. And she said, well, okay, well, maybe I can stick it out for another bit. I didn't know you existed, but I'm feeling more confident that I can do this now because she had someone, you know, there to offer the support. And so yes, I think a good amount of what we do is support of a moral support kind of a thing that that means even more than just the writing feedback itself.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good for people to know, and also I like what you were saying earlier about how you know, people come into it thinking like, oh, I'm a bad writer, when really they're not. Maybe they just need help in certain areas. And it reminded me of something that, and I think it was Todd that said it in a previous interview. So, and if it wasn't, don't kill me, Todd, for misattribution. Basically, that he had to learn when to turn it on and turn it off in terms of learning when, like, how to write in certain contexts, right? So it
Mhm.
sounds like you're saying that maybe people don't have as much experience sometimes, or feel anxious about writing in like a research paper context, even though they may be perfectly fine writers in like the context of their workplace, or the emails they have to send, or anything like that. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, do are there any kind of like common pitfalls that you encounter in terms of at like how students approach that things that come up over and over, in terms of like either how they're approaching writing or common writing mistakes that you've always wanted a platform to to address widely?
Well, not necessarily writing mistakes per se, but it's easy to underestimate the amount of time that writing takes. And we approach writing as a process. It does take time, and there are many parts of any project. And a lot of that, often, especially for research kinds of papers, there's a lot that has to happen before you even begin writing. You know, you're going to be looking through, first of all, you're going to be defining and deciding on your topic. You're going to be figuring out what do you already know about it, what do you need to know, identifying the kinds of sources that you need, going through databases looking for them, compiling things, reading through, skimming, annotating, maybe then beginning an outline, or maybe you've already written down some ideas, free writing or something like that. But that's a lot of work that takes a good deal of time before you even start writing. And there are some lucky individuals who can just churn out a paper overnight and it still be a really good paper. It's much harder to do that in graduate school. So if someone has been used to doing that and it's been working for them for a while, the demands of this type of writing generally isn't something that can be done in a very compressed amount of time. And that's also a challenge because many of the graduate students that we're working with, they have full-time jobs, they have families, they have an incredible number of demands on their time, which limit their extent to be able to do all of that. So one of the things that I'm often reminding students of, yes, look at when your deadline is, and then try to kind of walk that back a bit and, okay, what do I need to have done by this point? Sometimes, professors will say, okay, I want the first part of this by this date, and maybe that first part is just the introductory chapter. But even then, the introductory chapter requires doing all of that research and legwork in advance. So sometimes with students that come in and say, I have an idea, I have my topic, I just need, I just want to talk through the next steps with someone. And so sometimes we'll work on, kind of developing a plan for them and, offering it, kind of modeling it as an exercise of here's one possible way that you could develop a plan that is unique to you and works for you. Um, because they're going to know their situation better than anyone and their own learning processes and so forth. Here are some different strategies to use to approach this, and whether that means budgeting time, carving out some space in their schedule, or maximizing their efficiency in things like database searches and now I have all of these sources. What do I do with them? I feel like they all need to go in my literature review. Like, well, the good news is they don't. So, let's just use the ones that are most pertinent to your specific focus in this project. And so I do find that time management is the biggest thing. And some of the other considerations is many of the graduate students that we've worked with just don't know about the library, or even just this week I had a student email me and said, I've been told that as an SUU student I have access to all of the library's online resources, but I don't know how to find them. And so I was like, well, you're in luck. And so, I respond with, here's an email, here's a bunch of links to things. These are really going to be helpful for this kind of thing or that kind of thing. And if you have questions about APA, the website's really great. Here are some key things. So some of it is logistical, kind of working with graduate students to point them in the right directions for things. And I also tell students now, I realize this is a lot of information that's going to take time to go over some of these things, but I guarantee that spending a little bit of time as you have it to look at some of these modules, even if you're going through them quickly and just taking a few little notes, will actually save you a lot of time as you move through the various stages of your project.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point because I think even when you have experience with writing, and even when you've done it and you feel like you have it down, sometimes it's easy to forget like what a time consuming thing it is, because whether it's just doing the initial research and finding the resources you need, like up to like rewriting and revision and all of that, like it always seems to take longer than we sometimes think it will. And to that point, it's my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that students are welcome to come back for multiple sessions to work on the same project, right? So if they're at different parts of that process.
Absolutely, absolutely. We do currently limit students to 2 appointments per week, just because of limited staff, limited hours due to limited funding. Uh, During peak weeks, we refer to them as peak weeks, when we have a number of students coming in from 1 or more classes all at the same time, because of when a deadline is, then we'll ask students to just make 1 appointment, a week during that time, so we can work with as many people as possible. But absolutely, we often work with students, anywhere to 3 more times on a particular project, because some of these are very long, multi-chapter projects. Working on a capstone, and there are multiple chapters to the capstone. There are multiple chapters for the Masters of Education thesis, for example. And there are also a number of different steps and different approaches to those different chapters. So you're not necessarily going to use the same type of strategy in the methods section that you're using in the introduction. Methods is going to require a little bit more discussion of how the project is being done, and walking the reader through it, so that even someone who's not familiar with the field can know exactly the steps that are being taken to create that project or that study or analyze that thing. And then when you get to results section, that's even different, because now you get into analysis and interpretation. And sometimes students will have a statistical question for us. It's a little beyond the scope of our backgrounds and training, and we do our best to find information. But sometimes we you do have to recognize the limits of your own knowledge and say, I might not be the best person to answer that question, but I know some people who are, so let me put you in touch with them, or let me get an answer for you, and get back to you on that. um, so and I like to tell students, we can meet with you at any stage of your writing process. So even if maybe you just learned about the assignment today, and you already have a few ideas that you'd like to sit down and brainstorm with someone, we're happy to do that. So anywhere from the pre-writing to drafting to kind of a final review, where they just have a few spot check questions, or want us to take a look at a few citations, and so forth. So we are happy to assist with all of that. And something that you had said earlier, um, to speak to that. So in um, part of writing center theory is based on the theories of peer tutoring. And early peer tutoring was thought of as, you have students in the same class who are taking the same class at the same time, and they are exchanging papers. So more like what we're used to seeing in peer review in classes. And then that kind of turned into peer tutoring, where, well, it's peer because we have 2 students working, looking at writing together. But um, the tutor may not be working on the same paper, and may not even be in the same class, might not even be the same year as the student that they're working with. And there was a lot of debate in writing center theory and scholarship, especially in the early years, about what it meant to be a peer, and what a tutor would need to do to maintain that level of peerness, especially if the tutor, or if the student expects the tutor to be an authority and an expert on something. And so as writing center theory and scholarship has evolved, and various other theories have been presented, my favorite one is the idea of asymmetrical collaboration. And that acknowledges that in any sort of interaction, you're going to have at various times throughout that interaction, someone who has more information, more knowledge or background or experience of something than the other person in one or more areas, but the other person may also have more knowledge and experience and background in something else. And so it's this constant kind of exchange between. And so I I recognize that the student is going to have more knowledge of the assignment than I am because they're actually taking the class. So they can, I can, um, defer to them to get that information and so forth. They might also have far more writing knowledge and background and experience that I don't have. One of the last students I worked with had 20 years of journalism experience, which I don't have. But I do have knowledge and experience in this type of writing that she's working on now. And so, her background can inform that session in a way that just I, with my background, couldn't alone. And so that's one of the things I really love about writing sessions and tutoring sessions is that you share that knowledge, you share that expertise, and you share that authority. It's never just one person who's holding it all or knowing it all. That's simply impossible. And one other point, that you're mentioning about, um, the process of writing and the concerns and anxieties and so forth. In my undergraduate program at the University of Utah, I had a professor who announced one day in class, there's no such thing as a perfect paper. And half the class was freaking out because they thought that, oh no, I'm never going to get an A in this class. He doesn't think that I can, there's no perfect paper. I'm doomed. And then the other half is, oh, thank goodness. And so it was this idea, but I've taken that with me all these years because if there's no such thing as a perfect paper, and technically there isn't, that means there's always room to learn. There's always room to grow and to refine. And since writing is a process, I often remind students that writing is a process. So writing this particular assignment is a process, but learning is a process too. And there's always going to be room to learn more and, to add more knowledge and experience. So, I want them to hopefully take some comfort from that and feel more confident and comfortable with their writing and their experience as students, that just as I am continuing to learn and grow and develop in my own learning process in a number of things, as well as my own knowledge and skill as a writer, that they have that opportunity too. And so, you know don't beat yourself up about what you might not know now, or what you might feel like you're struggling with now, because with more time and with effort and practice, you're going to make progress, and it will happen. And sometimes I think, again, students just wanting to understand that, okay, I've got this, I can do this.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and I think a very good crystallization of how universities should operate, right? Like writing center and everywhere. Um, in our last few minutes, do you want to mention the webpage where students can go to sign up for a session?
Sure. So because it's much easier to find anything at SUU through Google, I recommend I recommend Googling SUU graduate writing, and the first thing that pops up on the page should be graduate appointments in the Writing Center. And I think if I can share my screen. Oh, no, I can't. Never mind. But anyway, if you go to the SUU Writing Center's page, if you find that, down on the left, you'll see graduate appointments. And if they click on that, then they'll be taken to our current webpage. We are in the process of developing content for our very own website for the Graduate Writing Center that will have all the information on everything from how to make appointments to the kinds of appointments and services that we offer to a brand new page of writing resources and guides specifically designed for graduate students at SUU. So we're very excited about that. That's in the works. We hope to have that rolled out in time for fall semester.
That's exciting. So I will also put the link in the video description when we get this up on YouTube. But until then, thanks so much. I appreciate you joining us today, Bethany. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for offering this opportunity, and my pleasure to be here. And thank you for being part of our partnership with the library as we support graduate students together, and look forward to talking with you more later.
Thanks.